If you spend any time online at all, you have definitely seen some wild theories. I mean, they feel so new, right? Like they were just born from the chaos of the internet. But what if I told you that the blueprints for today's biggest conspiracies are actually thousands of years old? Well, that's what we're going to uncover. So let's start with the central puzzle here. What could a modern internet thing like QAnon possibly have in common with ancient myths? It really does seem like a stretch. But the answer, well, it tells us something pretty profound about how we tell stories and maybe more importantly, why we believe them, especially when things get chaotic. Yeah, the connection is way deeper and, honestly, a lot more structured than you'd probably guess. We're about to pull back the curtain on a hidden narrative blueprint that's been reused for centuries. So let's get into it. Okay, to really get a handle on this blueprint, let's just start with a modern example. We're going to look at the QAnon conspiracy, but not to debunk it. Instead, we're going to look at it for what it is to its followers, a massive unfolding story. I mean, just look at the plot points here. You've got your clear-cut villains, right? A secret cabal. You've got a hero figure, a patriotic leader. There's a secret guide, this anonymous Q, and it all builds to a huge finale, this epic battle called the Storm. The followers get to be part of it, like digital detectives putting all the clues together. It's an entire narrative universe. So on the surface, this all feels so tied to our time, to the digital age, spreading through forums and social media. But is the actual story itself new, or is it just a high-tech version of a much, much older tale? This is where things start to get a little spooky, because as we look back through history, some disturbingly familiar patterns start to pop up. Turns out, the core accusations at the heart of this story are not new at all. This timeline is pretty chilling. Way back in the 12th century, you have the blood libel, this horrific, false accusation that Jewish people were murdering Christian children for rituals. Okay, now fast forward 800 years to the 1980s. The satanic panic sweeps America with almost the exact same claims about secret cults and daycares. And then boom, 2017, the same story structure pops up online. It's just incredibly persistent. And when you put them side by side like this, it's uncanny. The structure is basically identical. A secret, powerful group is accused of hurting children to get something they want. The only real change is the motive. It shifts from mystical power to political power. It's the same skeleton, just dressed up in different clothes for a different century. So this is the really critical point. The delivery system changes, right? It goes from word of mouth to the printing press to the internet. But the story itself, it has this incredible staying power. And that brings up a much deeper question. Why? What is it about this specific kind of story that is so compelling to us as human beings? Okay, to answer that why, we have to go even deeper. We're talking about digging into the foundational myths, the religious ideas that have shaped the way we think for thousands of years. This is where we find the story's DNA. All right, so one huge piece of this DNA comes from these ancient religious ideas called Gnosticism. The core concept is that the world we see every day is basically a corrupt illusion, and it's run by an evil force. But, and here's the key, a small group of people have access to secret knowledge, or gnosis, that lets them see the truth and find salvation. Sound familiar? It's that classic idea of an enlightened few fighting a corrupt system. The other key piece of the puzzle is something called apocalyptic dualism. Now, this is just a powerful engine for storytelling. It simplifies the entire world into a black and white struggle. There are no gray areas. It's a massive cosmic battle between the forces of light and the forces of darkness. And it all leads to one final, world-changing showdown. This framework gives the story incredibly high stakes and a really clear sense of purpose. So when you combine these two ancient ideas, the Gnostic secret knowledge for a chosen few, and the dualistic battle of pure good versus absolute evil, you don't just end up with a simple conspiracy theory. What you get is a powerful modern myth, one that gives its believers answers, an identity, and a sense of almost heroic purpose. But that raises a question, right? If these mythic blueprints are so old, why are they flaring up with such intensity right now? What is it about today's world that makes people so ready to believe in these ancient stories? This isn't a new question. People have been studying this for decades. Way back in 1964, the historian Richard Hofstadter wrote about what he called the paranoid style. And he noticed that in times of huge change and anxiety, people often start to feel like they're on the front lines of a cosmic battle, literally defending civilization itself. It's a pattern that just keeps showing up.
And this right here is the fuel for that fire today. You've got widespread crises, trust in institutions, government, media, you name it, is at rock bottom. People feel powerless, and we're all drowning in a sea of overwhelming, often contradictory information. In an environment like that, a simple story of good versus evil, a story that gives you a secret key to understanding everything, well, you can see how that would feel incredibly appealing.
And this right here is the absolute key takeaway. The crises we're living through didn't just invent these stories out of nowhere. The mythic blueprints, that Gnostic framework, the dualistic struggle, they are always there, just lying dormant in our culture. A crisis is like flipping a switch. It activates them, making them feel incredibly urgent, incredibly relevant, and, for some, incredibly true. So let's bring all these threads together now. We've got this ancient story structure, we have the modern-day crises that make it so attractive, and we have a new technology that can spread it faster and further than ever before in human history. The formula, when you break it down, is surprisingly simple. Step 1. You start with that timeless mythic blueprint, good versus evil, secret knowledge. Step 2. You attach it to a real-world anxiety people are feeling right now. Step 3. You supercharge it with the internet, giving it global reach in an instant. And step 4, a community forms around it, reinforcing the belief and giving people a real sense of shared purpose. And the result is this truly bizarre modern phenomenon. Ancient myths, with all of their deep psychological power, but they're packaged and delivered so they feel like urgent, unfolding, breaking news. The technology just completely collapses the distance between the ancient myth and our immediate reality, making these old stories feel more real than ever. So let's just end with this thought. Knowing that these conspiracies are built on these ancient myths, well, it doesn't just help us understand the theories, it helps us understand ourselves. It points to a really deep, really human need for clarity, for purpose, and for stories that help us make sense of a world that often feels chaotic and frightening. And the question that leaves us with is, what other stories can we tell that fill those same needs, but maybe in a more constructive way?